Hello, I'm Michaela Breach, and my presentation is about alliteration and assonance. So, the definition of alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginnings of words. And then the definition of assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds within the words of a sentence. These two things can be considered very similar, which is probably why Mr. Kennedy gave them to me as a package rather than just one. But it is important to remember that assonance involves vowel sounds within words, and that alliteration is mostly consonant sounds and at the beginning of words. And these things are actually widely used throughout the world, and not just in literature. They can be used in advertisements and music. But I'm going to first off give you some examples from the text that we've looked at before. So let's go to those. So from the text, some examples of alliteration. Our first one that I brought up is from the Silent Season on a Hero in our books on page 439, when Talise says, Mickey Mantle's mother, a smiling woman wearing ... We can see the repetition of the M sound at the beginning with Mickey Mantle and mother, and then also the W sound. This, though not intentional, also provides emphasis. And we'll notice, actually, that most alliteration is not very defined. It's used in little bits or little amounts, but it's not going to be as intentional as other sorts of literary terms. But another example that is more intentional can be seen in On Seeing England for the First Time by Jamaica Kincaid, when she says, the longer they are kept apart, the wider the width, the deeper the depth, the thicker and darker the darkness. We see the repetition of the W and D's in order for Jamaica uses this in order to emphasize her the notion that these concepts, the reality and then the idea of a thing, are kept apart. It makes the reader focus more on what she's trying to say. Now for some examples of assonance. And also in On Seeing England for the First Time, we can see assonance when she says, but this breakfast business was made in England like most everything else, the exceptions being the sea, the sky, and the air we breathed. We see the E, the long E sound, being emphasized in being, see, and we, and breathed, and that helps it flow a little bit more. And then in Once More to the Lake by E.B. White, we know that essay in general is very poetic and flows a lot, and so he uses assonance in this case in order to make it flow and sound more poetic. I took along my son, who had never had any fresh water up in his nose, and who had seen lily pads only from train windows. So we can see how assonance can be used to make something flow, kind of like poetry or a song almost, in order for the reader to just kind of have their eyes glaze through it and their mind go through it without much trouble and very easily. Now for some original examples, the couple of examples that came up for alliteration, one of them is, the slimy snake slithered and smiled like a sleaze. Obviously I'm emphasizing the S sound with the snake and the slimy. And then another example would be, Mr. Kennedy cackled quite evilly after giving a corrosive essay grade. And even though the K, the Q, and the C are all different letters, the fact that they sound the same when pronounced this way, in this sort of form, also makes them alliterative rather than just being different letters. They also categorize as being alliterative. Now for my examples of assonance, the first one I had was, the holy man coldly sold out his friend for gold. Now, it should be obvious that I'm emphasizing the O sound with holy, coldly, sold, for, and gold, because I'm trying to make it sound different rather than just saying something else. And then another example I came up with was, I felt the breeze when I was standing beneath the creepy fan. I'm emphasizing the double E sound. And also, even though EA is two different letters than just EE, it sounds the same, so it's also can be used for assonance. Now for some real-world examples, you may think alliteration's not used as much as it is, but you can see them, and alliteration really makes characters and brands memorable. Like, if you think about Mickey Mouse or Daffy Duck, you recognize their names almost anywhere, and you can't really forget about them. And also, in more modern sort of context, Godric Gryffindor from Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling uses that alliterative sort of thing for names of the different people there. And then in commercials, alliteration's also used. And you guys may be familiar with the Jaguar kind of slogan. It's called "Don't dream it, drive it." And then you can see the alliteration with the D sound there, and then also it is repeated a couple times. And then also, M&M's melts in your mouth and not in your hand. That's very familiar, and also you can't really forget about that. So alliteration is very useful in advertising and also many other things, but these are just some real-world examples I thought you guys would enjoy. Now, some real-world examples of assonance. It's used largely in music, and so I took a little bit of the song Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus out, and it's the first verse when she's saying, I'm not going to sing it, but we clawed, we chained our hearts in vain, we jumped, never asking why, we kissed, I fell under your spell, a love no one could deny. So she's using a lot of assonance here, with chained and vain, and then why and deny later on, and then fell and spell. It kind of just flows and rhymes, and it's very catchy to the listener. And then in another song, actually kind of popular song, is in Wake Me Up by Avicii. It's one of the verses, and it's when the singer goes, wish that I could stay forever this young, too afraid to close my eyes, life's a game made for everyone, and love is the prize. So that's more towards the end of the words, but it's also considered assonance because it's overemphasizing the vowel sounds. So basically, in conclusion, assonance and alliteration, they're two related but different things. Alliteration is with consonant sounds and at the beginnings of words, and assonance is with vowel sounds in the middle words that are close to each other. And they're also used widely throughout this world. So I hope you guys have a better understanding. Thank you for watching.